Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the iKONIC podcast. Joining Tony and I in the seat today, we have our good friend and real estate genius, Ayush Singh. And Ayush, guys, is serving the North Jersey area. So if you guys do want to connect with him, I will, of course, throw his handles all down in the description section. So, dude, welcome to the pod, bro. I'm happy to have you on, man.
Boys, thank you for having me.
Of course.
I appreciate this.
So Ayush, listen, man. I figured a good way to get this conversation going would be talking about the real estate agent position as of right now. Okay. So, I remember back before I went to Georgia, I was like, I think this might be a career for me.
Right.
And I started, taking the classes, etc. I ultimately never pursued it because I went out there, but I wanted to kind of get a feel from you. Do you think 2024, it makes sense to go down that route? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there is still good opportunities to be becoming an agent. I think anything in sales, if you don't have something that you specifically want to get into, anything technical or coding, or you don't want to be a lawyer or anything, sales is one of those overall careers that I think could be super beneficial. It's like one of those skill sets that I think will last forever. No matter, I'm sure we'll get into AI and everything like that. But
absolutely.
It is. But specifically about being a real estate agent, yes, there is, but it needs to come with some expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the reasoning people get into any business, but also especially real estate, is they see the huge commission. They watch Selling Sunset or something like that. And they see those massive,
$1 million listing.
They see those TV shows, and they come to expectations where they're going to get into the business, start making $100,000 commissions. So it's about managing expectations. And the other thing I'll say is a lot of people will come to me to be wanting to become an agent, and they'll want to do it part-time. So one of the things about doing it part-time is I don't see it really working out. Listen, I don't like to discourage anyone from pursuing what they want to do.
Absolutely. But
doing it part-time, especially when you have a 9-to-5 job, is extremely difficult, especially as a real estate agent. Especially if your 9-to-5 is totally consuming your time, you don't have any space. It's very difficult. It's not impossible, but I always tell people, if you're gonna do it part-time, try to make it your full-time as soon as possible.
Right.
Try to get into it, go hard, and definitely try to become full-time into, if you want to make that real money in the business.
Now, just going back, you brought up a good point. How difficult is it to land those $1 million listings?
Yeah, it's not. Sometimes, it's funny you say that. It's because sometimes the $1 million listings, although you might think those are the tougher ones than the 200K condo or the 300K condo.
Right.
It's pretty much, it might be even easier if you can put yourself in a position as being the best professional to sell that $1 million listing. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get it. But in the beginning, like I said, if you're a brand new agent, you don't know what you're doing, you're just learning the ropes, then obviously it's a little bit difficult to sell yourself. But
good point.
If you have that background and you've been in the business for a while, you've done the business, you've done the hard work, then yeah, it's sometimes even easier to get those listings than it is those couple condo listings or those smaller listings.
I was gonna say, and guys, I gotta believe a lot of the times with those $1 million listings, they kind of sell themselves.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense, because the property is just so beautiful as is.
And it's funny though too, right? To Ayush's point, it's people at that scale, I feel also they're not thinking about, what's $300,000, especially when you have a net worth of a couple million. You're not going to penny pinch Ayush for that extra percentage or be like, hey man, can you give me a discount? So I see what you're saying though. There's a bit of there's less due diligence also, but it's also the finding, right? And that kind of leads me to my question with you. Comparing to the market pre-COVID, where interest rates were low, everything was kind of fully on the up and up. Economy was going up, trending up. Did you see a shift of buyers compared to what it is now with inflation and higher interest rates, or is it relatively same demand for housing and people wanting to get into homes?
Yeah, that's a good question. The demand is definitely still there. Year over year, probably this year we're seeing still a 7-8% increase in home values this year, which is crazy. Typically appreciation is about 2 to 3% in homes, and we're still seeing double, almost triple those numbers in this year, but it was nowhere near how it was in.
Right.
During COVID, when those rates went to 2-3%,
right,
people lost their minds, and 100K above asking,
that's insane.
200K above asking.
It really got ridiculous at a certain point,
Yeah, because at mortgage rates at that low, paying interest on 2-3%, that's almost as close to free money as you're going to get.
That's unheard of, right?
It's almost unheard of. Yep.
Well, you're basically, because at that point I feel like every payment you're making is towards principal at that point, so it's like you could accelerate the ownership of your home, because what is it typically now, 30 years? Is that still, even with the high interest rates, right?
I mean, 30, it's, you have 15-year loans, you have 30-year loans, you even have 10-year loans, but 30 years is the most popular one.
Right.
And what's crazy is when interest rates dropped to whatever it was, 2.5%, people thought it was going to go to zero. So people always want more. I got clients that were like, oh, let me.
Oh my God.
Greed is crazy in every industry. But yeah, people were like, oh no, let me wait a little bit longer. I think it's going to go even lower. And I'm just like, man, it's 2.5%.
Pull the trigger.
Right.
Yeah, and now people are, crying now that it's at 5.5 or 6.5.
It's making its way back up.
It's almost at least double, if not, double what it was during COVID time. So,
question for you boys, like at this point, do you guys genuinely think it's a good idea to buy a house, or do you think that it's a better option to go down the renting? Because you see the prices of properties nowadays. Right. I have to believe that at a certain point in time, it's going to reach a ceiling.
Yeah, I'll let you. Ayush, I want to hear your thoughts first, and I'll chime in here on that question.
Sure. So buying a house, I think that's very. It's a layered question because it all depends on the person buying it. I think the first problem that people have is they don't understand their finances. People don't know if they can even afford a house. And what's crazy is you'll have the people that are looking for houses. Not everyone, but you'll have people on both sides of the spectrum. You have people looking for houses that couldn't afford a bag of chips at the grocery store, and you'll have people that are sitting at the sidelines waiting, and they're thinking they're never going to afford a house when they've never even talked to a lender or an agent about their finances, and they could afford if they really wanted to buy something. They're just like, oh my God, interest rates. They have that mindset that I'm never going to be able to buy a house. So it's about talking to the right people, talking to a good real estate agent, talking to lenders, and making sure see if you're able to afford it and what you have to do to get to home ownership, what you need to have in the bank.
I was gonna say, if you have debt of any sort outside, I think your typical, maybe card note or your student loans, I wouldn't even look at a house, right? If you have credit card debt, which your interest rate is at 60%, whatever it is, 28%, whatever it typically is now, why even look at it? So
28%?
That's typically what
on college loans?
No, on a credit card.
Oh, a credit card.
That's how insane it is.
Such bad debt.
So if you have bad debt like that, and maybe we might disagree on this, but I feel like a home should be your last option right now, right? Because you want to make sure you have your finances in order. You need to have, I'm sure there's a lot of costs to take in consideration, closing costs. You got your down payment, you got your property taxes, you got, what's that one thing? HOA also you probably need to pay.
The different fees that come with it.
Of course. So yeah, like I said, no, I agree with you because people just don't know what they don't know, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think there's, if you have those credit card debt, especially credit card debt, like you mentioned, those interest rates, you got to get those paid off first.
Right.
And it's going to make it, your credit score is probably getting, in the mud if you have crazy credit card debt. So it's going to make it even more difficult for you to buy a house. So, but then there's people that, do have the money and, they don't have that much crazy debt. Maybe they have college tuition and that type of debt. But, and they can talk to a lender or an agent and they could figure out okay, maybe I could afford a house because people just don't know. I have clients that still think you need to pay 20% down when you're buying a primary resident, and that's just not the case. If you're buying a house for yourself, you have a lot more options than, let's say, you're an investor. Investors have a lot of options as well, but also if you're buying a house for yourself, you do have a decent amount of advantages.
So, you brought up a really good point about how people don't understand that you don't have to put down the 20 to 25%. Are there any other solid real estate hacks that you would recommend the people at home, the New Jersey home buyers, or just in general, this might be something that might prove beneficial to you?
Yeah, it's hacks in terms of the biggest hack is
when I say hacks, I mean maybe like different types of creative financing, for example.
Yeah. There's tons of creative financing, but to find those options, you just have to be diligent in making the effort to like talk to the right people and doing the research. Like, your most conventional way is going to be going to like a lender or a broker lender and getting financing that way. You don't want to go the loan shark way and like, you know, that's like go to the mafia or like, you know, do something.
I can only imagine
like,
some people,
especially on a house like where your family's going to be living. Like, don't put yourself in a desperate situation. I would say, you know, I would love for people to buy homes and, you know, obviously being an agent, but definitely don't put yourself in a desperate situation. My recommendation is figure out what your monthly payment is going to be, figure out how much down payment you're going to need, and then also have a decent amount of savings for that monthly payment.
Give yourself a cushion.
Give yourself a cushion, like anything, any big type of purchase. Give yourself, like, let's say your monthly payment is $3,000 a month, your mortgage payment. So give yourself at least 6 months of mortgage payment just set on the side. Right. So in case you lose your job.
In case shit hits the fan, you know that you're going to have some sort of reserve.
You got 6 months to figure out, because you don't want to lose your house, like, or lose your condo, whatever it is. And you put all that effort to get the condo, and then, like, you know, you're beat. You know,
Yep.
Ayush, I'm curious, is it as bad of getting an approval as it is getting a car, right? Because nowadays you go into the Hyundai dealership, you can have a 200 credit score, you can make negative 100 income, and then they'll be like, yeah, sure, we'll give you this, you know, 2003 Hyundai Sonata, it does barely runs, and your payment's like $1,200 a month. Is it the same way, or is there really a little bit more? There's a bit more of a standard here, and there's some ethics that the industry follows.
I feel like there's a slightly higher standard for houses, and I'm not even joking. It's probably like a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could get approved for anything. Like if you went to a lender, they'd be like, okay, yeah, you're pretty broke, but I guess I could approve you for a $100K place. You know?
Yeah. So I remember you once telling me about that. How like people get into these situations where they're like fudging the papers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like, tell us a little bit about that, dude.
Yeah. So there's been this, I'm sure it happens all the time, but yeah, I think more people are getting caught now,
right?
Because of the interest rate being high, and also agents are desperate, lenders are desperate for business. So many and desperation causes people to do crazy things. So what's happening now is you'll come to me and you'll say, I want to buy $1 million house. We'll check your paperwork and we'll find out you can only afford a $500K house.
Right.
I'll say, Nick, don't worry. I'm gonna take your income statements, add a zero to that. Add a zero at the end of that income, that yearly income, and we'll get you approved for $1 million.
That's insane.
So you know, eventually, it's also the lender's fault. They didn't check it more thoroughly, but these loans will get approved, and eventually, obviously, these people can't make the payments. Right. That's how most people.
Why
get caught.
even put yourself in that situation?
People are stupid, man.
People are dumb.
Yeah, people are dumb, and you know, I mean, for any agents or lenders, I mean, you're getting serious jail time. You know, that's mortgage fraud, and you know, you're gonna put yourself in a super shitty situation. And yeah, I don't know why these people think they're not gonna get caught. These are, you know, big banks, and they're gonna eventually, you know, check where they have the money.
What's good,
check who they're lending to.
Yep.
So. Yeah, the process is usually quite diligent, but yeah, eventually it takes a little bit of
time.
time.
There are things that slip through the cracks.
Through the cracks, and then, but eventually you're going to get caught because you know, they're going to see that this guy can't make these payments. Like he's broke, like, you know.
It's just bad business all around.
It's just bad business.
Are you speaking of like shitty shit and just like fraud and all that? I gotta ask, man, because this is one thing that's been so prominent the last couple months. What are your thoughts on squatters that have been infesting like New York City? I haven't heard much cases here because I think laws are a little bit different in New Jersey, but I gotta ask, man. Have you come across that? Anybody?
I personally haven't in Jersey, but for lack of a better word, it's kind of fucked. You know, it's like
I can't believe people are getting away with that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like you buy a house, you say, like I said, you know, like just going through the hoops, you buy a house, you put all your effort, sweat, just for someone to live there for free, and then you get in trouble for trying to kick them out. You know, so
dude, that is so backwards.
You can potentially get jail time for trying to kick out the person staying in your house that you're paying for. So,
like, dude, that's that's one thing that I struggle to understand. It's my property. I made the crazy payments on it. If I want to be able to choose who can stay in there and who could not.
Right.
If you're squatting in my property, like, dude, you best believe I'm calling someone. You know what I mean?
Dude, and it's nuts though, because to your point, I'll never forget this story. I was reading the news, or I should say watching the news, and that's exactly what happened. Some lady went on vacation. I think she went for like a month or something, because there's certain like terms like that the person squatter needs to live there for them to take full ownership. Came back, it's like 8 people living in there. She managed to kick all 8, and then the news company came in, checked up on her.
They started squatting there.
No. No. The squatter came inside the house while they're filming. They're watching the guy kind of get in there, and he literally looks at the lady and goes, "You need to get out of my house." And that was the lady's home the entire time.
What?
I was like, bro, what? And she changed
backwards.
She changed the locks, and then she got arrested.
Yeah,
dude, that is so messed up, bro.
Dude, it's sick, man.
Even like not even getting up to the squatting thing in a lot of like Jersey, New York, even evicting a tenant that starts not paying rent.
Oh my God,
bought a house. It's such a process.
So educate me on that. How does that work? Like, they can only have so much time. They have a few months before you can really get them out.
I mean, it's a process.
It's a formal process.
You gotta put a court order in. You have to give them first. You have to give them an eviction letter. You have to send an attorney. You have to pay for an attorney. Give them an eviction letter, right? Yeah. Then they have again, I'm not a lawyer, but they have a few months.
Is this legal advice?
To like get them to go leave the house. Exactly. They have a couple months to evict the house. Eventually, if they don't do that, then you put a court order in. And the last stage is they'll eventually bring someone from the sheriff's department to take out the tenant. But in New Jersey, in the blue states, it takes forever. What I've heard from in red states, it's such a process. You can get someone out in like a week or two.
Okay. That's sick. Yeah.
And whereas like,
but in blue states, they take their time moving the paper from one desk to another.
Especially if it's like winter. If it's winter, forget about it. Like you're not seeing that house for the entire season. Like they're not allowed to kick out. Like I get in terms of the rental side that it's winter. You don't want to kick these people out into the streets. It's I feel bad for these people in a certain extent, but at the same time, it's what is wrong is wrong.
So now, malicious,
guys, hear me. Like, I gotta believe that even like a lot of real estate agents are the ones squatting, because correct me if I'm wrong. If you're a part of like the realtor association, whatever, and you have access to like what do they call that? The
MLS.
MLS, exactly. I didn't want to say sound stupid. Anyway, but the MLS.
Yep.
Isn't it like you can actually see lists of properties where the homeowner like died or something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean you can see that. I mean that's public information typically. You can get information regarding, or you can pay for information regarding abandoned houses or houses that are vacant. But also, like as a real estate agent, you can get access to houses on the listing. But I never heard of agents doing that. That's crazy to me. I mean,
that's wild.
If people do that, that's insane. I mean, I can imagine you're going to lose your license, if not go to jail, if you start squatting. At the bare minimum, you're going to lose your license.
You're gonna find yourself in hot water. So, Yush, by the way, you mentioned like way before that, like if you're working with a good real estate agent, it's like a big deal. What to you makes a good real estate agent and a crappy one?
Yeah, so I'll start with they're all, obviously it's the complete opposite, right? So crappy agent is basically someone that isn't responsive. Like,
that's big in real estate.
I mean, that's one of the huge things, especially in a market where houses are flying. A couple of days in, the houses will ask for something called the highest and best. So just real quick, a highest and best is kind of like a silent auction.
Right.
It's where they'll say everybody needs to put their offers in by Saturday at 12 p.m.
Right.
And everybody submits whatever best offer they'll get. They get 5, 10 offers, whatever it is.
Right.
From the buyers,
and the sellers will just choose whichever one has the best terms, the best price, overall over thing. And there's no really going back and forth. It's really they just choose whatever the best offer they received out of the bunch. So going back to that point, because houses are going so quickly and doing these highest and best, you need a responsive agent. The other thing is you need an agent that has resources for you. as in the lenders. They have multiple lenders you guys can contact, so you guys are getting off different options, different rates, compare rates, attorneys. They have everything ready. They have a full game plan.
They have a team
and obviously they're knowledgeable about the market. They know what's going on in the market, especially the markets you're looking in. They know what houses are going for. They know how to do a CMA, which is a comparative market analysis. So it's kind of like giving you what the value of this home should be, or giving you an idea of what we need to be in order to win the home. They're guiding you. They're kind of guiding you in the right direction. And then, obviously it's a client's job to be a good client and actually listen to your agent if he's actually doing all these things. And if he seems knowledgeable and listening to him basically.
Absolutely.
Or her.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I kind of just want to extend that even further. What do you guys both think, being that both of you guys are in this sales world?
Right.
We had this conversation before about how there's a very small percentage of the salesmen or saleswomen who are really bringing in those numbers and making those crazy commission checks. Yeah. What do you guys think just in general makes someone good at sales?
That's a good question. I mean, there's always that one law that I know Ayush and I both know. It's the 20-80 law, right? 20% of the top sales rep typically bring in 80% of the revenue for the company.
Yep.
But I think the biggest attribute I've seen, and I think Ayush and I can really relate to this, is you need a lot of resilience. The reality is that sales isn't easy. It'll never be easy, but that's why the top salespeople at certain companies, they'll make anywhere from $500,000 to up to $1 million, while the average guys typically make anywhere from 120 to 200 on their best days, right? So there's levels to it, but the guys that last, and so just so you guys know a little stat on my thing, and I've been in sales now for close to 5 years. I've probably seen people come in and out, probably 30 to 60 reps in software space alone, right?
30 to 60.
30 to 60 reps individually. And I've only been doing this for 5 years. So the one thing that I've seen a lot is the amount of commitment and experience you need to put in is a lot. But to really last, you don't see it quite often if you don't have resilience. People get tired of whether it's getting rejected, whether it's getting ghosted, whether it's people playing, not willing to commit to whatever you're trying to sell. And some people eat them alive. So yeah, no, it's a tough bracket, man. It's
yeah.
A lot of people,
the average they make 110.
I would say on average,
that's still pretty good.
It's great money in sales. That's great money.
As an agent, the average agent makes 50.
50?
50, 55, they're doing 1-2 deals. I would say even there's a decent chunk, I don't know the percentage, but there's a decent chunk that don't make nothing.
Now guys, as time goes on, is it true that in the sales world, your sales volume picks up dramatically the longer you're in the game?
Oh, 100%. I think there's a rule called time and territory. The longer you're working your certain market, the longer you build those relationships, the longer you kind of understand, hey, this X company, especially what you're working with, right? Company or a person, you understand their timelines, and then ultimately they'll make a commitment at some point. Yeah. So yeah, your success is there. And I think Ayush, with you, how does it look like for a real estate agent?
Yeah, I was about to say, I would kind of push back on that part, because it's not really time in the industry, because I know agents that I know my second year, I did about $9 million in sales, and there were agents that were 20, 30 years in the business, and they never did a single year doing $9 million.
Really?
That's
they
nuts.
were in the business 20, 30 years, because they just they did their couple million, maybe 2-3 million, and then they were comfortable at that. You hit this comfortability stride. That's kind of where and you don't end up developing or trying to push yourself to do more. But yeah, so it's not always about time. It's about making sure that you're always innovating, always being knowledgeable about the market, always finding new ways to find new leads. And you have a constant lead flow, because that's the name of the game, making sure that you have leads just generating, coming in, and you always have business to work on, because it could get very dry at certain points. If the market changes or things happen, you want to make sure that the leads flow is still coming in, because
leads are everything.
Everything.
And we're obviously friends. We've had a conversation not long ago also about someone else we went to high school with that started another company in the real estate realm, which is Frank.
Yep.
And I actually just recently reached out to him. Shout out Frank. And I was like, hey, listen, what do you think about giving me an hour of your time? Come on iKONIC podcast. We'll have some good conversation. But I'm now I know you mentioned it at the beginning of the pod, but how do you think real estate or just technological advancements in general are going to affect the real estate industry?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like maybe AI and stuff
AI,
like that.
exactly right,
Yeah?
exactly right.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, AI is crazy, man. Like it's moving at such a pace, and I think over the next 5-10 years, it's going to take over every industry.
Are you already using it as like a tool?
I'm personally using it here and there. Like I'll use GPT sometimes just to figure certain things out, but that doesn't even have a current up-to-date market data. It's like the market data is from like 2019.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit
behind.
It's a little behind, but you know, eventually, yeah, I think it's gonna, like I said, I think it's gonna affect every industry from podcasting to whatever industry, 100%, construction, 100%. Real estate. But yeah, so I think it's important that you definitely integrate new technology as it comes in. Even like from my last brokerage to this brokerage, like this brokerage, I would say that uses a lot more technology than my last brokerage did. We have like a marketing tool that, you know, will automatically, if you have listings, will automatically create marketing material for you to post right away, you know, instantly. You know, there's a CRM which basically organizes all your leads and you can contact them right there. So using technology is, it's always good to be on the top end of that.
Absolutely. And you know, it's the way that I look at it is like this. I feel like nowadays, no matter what industry you're working in, I don't care if you're selling cars, I don't care if you're flipping hamburgers, I don't care what. I feel like you have to be a content creator. And I've even seen you with your Instagram page.
Yeah.
You've been creating more and more posts, more stories, which are like beautiful showings of the houses. I even know back when like it was like the pandemic.
Yeah.
People were doing like virtual house tours. I saw where it would be like a camera that goes in the house, does the whole showing. So no matter what, like you said, tech is going to influence every sphere. And like I said, using that to your advantage in the realm of content creation is going to be big, like massive.
Well, yeah, I think that now more than any time any point in time, I should say, social media is where a lot of leads are coming in from. Like there's this one guy I love watching, and I always forget his name. I don't know if you ever come across him. He goes, what does he say? He has a slogan. He goes, he starts running around the house. He's like some skinny white kid with glasses, and he goes, house tour. And he's literally doing house tours on TikTok, running around, showing like all different aspects.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what, man? As someone who will be a future home buyer, I'm like, I want to buy a house from this guy one day. And he's doing all house tours in Maryland.
By the way, boys, I wanted to ask you, like, I'm sure by now you guys have seen those listings online for those, like, $1 houses in Italy.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I've
you guys
seen some TikToks on that.
You guys think that that's, like, something worth looking into, like, as an investment overseas? What do you guys think about international real estate in general? Would you ever buy a property overseas to do, like, Airbnb?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think?
Oh, 100%. You know where I've seen like a big prominent market, and I'll get into the Italy houses because I know there's a lot of stipulations around it. You have to invest a certain amount, and it's like in the middle of bumblefuck nowhere.
Exactly.
So, it's like you're gonna be hanging out with a bunch of cows. You decide to build a condo out there, right? You need to bring business, all this good stuff. So don't recommend it. But you know, to your point, I've been seeing a lot of fucking houses like to Airbnb in like Tulum, Mexico, like multi-million-dollar mansions in the sense that it would cost here in the U.S. Over there, they're going for like $750K, and they're gorgeous.
Oh, I gotta believe like, you're dropping $1 million in Mexico.
I feel like that's where money should have gone. Even it's crazy. I remember watching International House Hunters one time, and this woman had a $50K budget.
50K budget.
It was like
man. At that point, you got to go looking in like Kabul, Afghanistan. Or
something. Here we are. She had like a 50-60K budget, and she's like in like Oaxaca, Mexico. Shout out to Rafa, my cousin. He's from out there, dude. There's houses out there for $50K you could buy. They're not pretty, but it's a house nonetheless, and it has like a backyard, and it's very run down, but it just shows that there's a lot of potential out there with a little bit of money to kind of get you started to start renting out to people.
And
so
you know, not even just like Mexico. Like for example, my bro was talking to me about one of his buddies in the south of Italy, and he's like, yeah, like. He bought all his kids' houses down there, and I'm like, oh shit, like he must make like money.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but Nick, like a house down there could be like 25, 30,000 euro, and I'm like 30,000 euro Italy. But then when you think about the $1 houses, like I have to believe that you can get a house for any price.
Oh yeah.
You might need to invest some money into it, but like that's the whole thing with the Italy houses. From what I understand, you have to invest a lot of money to redo the plumbing, electricity, all that kind of stuff. So Italian Americans, I think you're just gonna go out there, buy that dream house of yours. You're gonna have to put a lot of work, and like you said before, from what I understand, they're in the middle of these like uninhabited towns in the middle of like East Bumblefuck.
Nobody knows ever heard about.
So I'll just say there's always a catch to everything, man.
There's always a catch.
If it sounds too good to be true, it's
likely it is.
You know? Classic saying, but yeah, I was even watching. I was on TikTok, and I know there's this lady that bought a house right by like what's the place in Italy that everybody has their weddings at, and
either Lake Como or Amalfi Coast.
I want to say Lake Como. She bought a house somewhere near that area. And super cheap, whatever. Like, I don't know how she got it so cheap, but it was completely run down.
Did people die there?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
You never know.
But basically, like, she was renting there. And the other thing about there, it's not like over here where, you know, you can get a contractor, like, instantly and they can get the material and everything. Even here, it's becoming ridiculous. But it's even harder over in Europe, like, to get the material to fix up their house. Now she's, like, struggling. Like, the house... She said she has to move in 2 or 3 weeks, and the house doesn't even look habitable. It's broken. You can see like wood like everywhere. And
especially in a country like Italy. Like in Italy, let me tell you something. Nothing ever gets done. That's why Italy is thousands of years old. People are going to be like this in the comment section right now. Oh, but Italy's not that old. Look, I'm talking about that land has been inhabited for thousands of years, right? Thousands of years. But it's like... the bureaucracy is so slow that nothing ever gets done.
No.
But I actually wanted to ask...
It's a culture thing too, right? You correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
like,
you're
culture
right.
is more relaxed in Spain and Italy and
exactly
like those countries. It's like, oh, we'll get it done, you know, eventually. You know,
there's no sense of urgency. It doesn't exist out there.
You know where I would never invest in real estate, and it kind of goes back to our earlier conversation about squatters? Spain. And I might be wrong. Maybe other parts of Europe, but I heard in Spain that if you build a house or you have an apartment out there and someone breaks into it and sleeps in it for 72 hours, that is officially their house. And you're never getting it back. That is a fact. So fact check that shit.
I may have read that somewhere.
I would never, ever build a condo in Madrid or wherever because God forbid somebody figures myself out and 72 hours later it's not my home anymore.
Especially if you're not in the country or something.
Oh, imagine that. Bro, if that's my vacation home, I'm not getting anything back.
Now it's their vacation. By the way, Yush.
Yeah, what's up?
So we have one of my good friends in the pod. Her name's Amber.
Yeah.
And she was telling us about how, like, in Japan, and I even fact checked this.
Right.
If someone dies in a house, like Japanese people, it's part of their culture. Like they will not want that house.
Right.
So like you can get houses for like next to nothing, especially outside the cities.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, how in America, like how much is the price affected if someone dies in a house?
Yeah, it's
And are you supposed to disclose that?
So
good point,
in terms of disclosing it, like you know, I think if the person asks, if the buyer asks, they can disclose it, but you don't have to disclose it like if no one asks directly. You know, if they ask directly, then I believe it has to be disclosed. I could be wrong about this. You know, we do learn about this in like real estate school, and also I know there's like a pedophile like as well, same thing. Like if they live in the neighborhood sex offender list, if you have to disclose it if the person asks like, oh, is there a neighboring sex offender? I believe you should disclose it, but I could be wrong about that. It could be state to state as well.
Yeah.
But your question was, how does these things affect?
The price?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely affects it. For instance, you know, my family's even looking to buy a house, and we're looking. They saw a house in Saddlebrook recently, and the house was immaculate. Like it has a movie theater in the basement.
Oh, that's
a sick house. It should be like almost closer to $1 million house, but it's listed at $799. So we're like, wow, this is a pretty fantastic price. So they go see it, and they find out that it's right next to a cemetery. So
I'll fucking do it.
Right next to a cemetery.
What?
So
I'll live there.
For some people,
I mean, that shit's probably haunted.
So
I used to live next to a cemetery.
Some people are fine with it. You know, it's culture to culture, but like obviously we live in a melting pot. Like I know for a lot of South Asians, certain directions of the house have to make sense. I know for For Chinese people, the bedroom direction or the sunlight direction is a huge deal. So, you know, being in America, there's like a big cultural, like, especially for, I'm sure Europeans have something similar, but but you know, especially for South Asians, what I can speak for is that the direction has to face a certain way. Some people care, some people don't. I even have clients that the number of the house has to be specific. Like, I have an investor, she will not purchase a house if the numbers aren't in this particular, like, they're not all even numbers, for instance, or they add up and they add up to an odd number.
Really?
You know, so she
numerology and all that.
It could be the most perfect property, like, for the investment. She can be making a ton of money, but she will not touch it if you know the numbers don't add up.
Yush, that is very interesting. Like, you just educated me on. I had no idea about that.
So some buyers really do have like they could go even deeper than just what the house looks like in the price. It's like
yeah.
I do gotta ask though, Yush, I'm curious on your end. Do you believe in ghosts, bro?
Ghosts, yeah. I mean, I believe in. That's interesting. I definitely believe in like external forces, if that's what you mean, but I don't know about like fucking Casper and shit, you know.
Serious question. Did you ever sell a house that might have had an external force?
Somebody fucking opening the doors and closing, Casper, you know, banging the doors and whatnot.
I said I've sold some houses in the hood which were were creaking, and you know, I was a little nervous to be in there, but no, I haven't seen a ghost in a house recently, but let's see. Maybe one day.
I gotta say, for like all my non-ghost believers, go to Japan, get yourself a multi-million yen house, you know, enjoy it, right? Live next to a cemetery. I would say that's a real estate hack. If you're not scared of ghosts and you're not superstitious, get in there.
Can I tell you something? If someone like dies in a house over here, it's really, I gotta believe it's not gonna affect the price that much that someone died in there, especially if it's for like natural cause. Natural cause,
yeah. Like, well, here's a great example, and I have a friend who I used to live with, and I'm not gonna say names just for their own privacy and whatnot. But their grandmother passed away, and I was very close with her. I used to see her like every day going over this guy's house.
Right.
I lived in that room where she passed, so like, when it comes down to just, you know, being in those scenarios, like, it doesn't bother me. Except I do have one story that till this day, and I had to sleep with the lights on after this moving on. Like, the first 2 months I was there, things were cool. You know, everything was normal. And there was this one time I left a water bottle, you know, on a table, right? And I was sleeping. It was like 3 a.m. And I kid you not, I swear on everything, the water bottle went, flew off the table. And I woke up and I saw a guy cross. And doors are closed, windows are closed, and I sat there and I was just like, all right, well, I live here now and I pay rent, so there's no running out. So I just slept with the lights on ever since that day, and I was there for a year. That was the only incident done. I was just like, all right.
How old were you when this happened?
Dude, I was like 23.
Oh, 20. Oh, wow. Okay.
That's insane.
Yeah. So I would have been freaking out at any age. Yeah. No, I definitely believe in shit like that. Like, I've heard so many stories, like, spiritual, like, you know, being here, they haven't like crossed over to the next world, or stuff like that. That stuff, like, honestly, I do believe in that stuff. I've heard so many stories and, like, you know, different accounts of that happening, that I feel like there must be something, you know, more.
Yeah, I feel like there's some things that just simply cannot be explained, if that makes any sense.
Of course.
I got a quick question for you boys. Ready? As we're getting into like spooky, haunted, like real estate and whatnot. If you were offered to live at one of like the most beautiful high-rises in New York City, but it was Ted Bundy's kind of like killer lair, and they would sell it to you for like $10, would you live in it?
Wait, $10 what?
To live in Ted Bundy's like killing lair, where he did all those like horrific murders, but it was a high-rise in New York City. Like, on the most expensive real estate.
People are such freaks nowadays. That house would probably be worth more. People are so like into like those type of like creepy weird shit. It's like it's become almost like fantasized, you know. People would pay extra to live there, you know.
Yeah, that's what they're making a fucking museum. Yeah,
literally,
dude, that's so crazy, man.
It's crazy, yeah. And that's like another point. It's like, you know, we've started like, it's so weird when you go on TikTok, like people talk about these murider stories, and especially chicks. Chicks love murder stories and stuff like that. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're like, they like fantasize, not fantasize.
You're right. They love to hear the messed up shit that these murders are doing.
What's going on? Kind of going into this path here now, like, You guys ever heard of the term Stockholm syndrome, right? Stockholm syndrome.
I've heard of it. Yep.
I've heard about it. Just elaborate on that for the listeners.
So Stockholm syndrome is essentially a kind of like a psychological thing your brain does in a moment where you start showing sympathy for the person. In this case, if you're kidnapped or whatnot, or in a desperate situation where your life's endangered, where you start actually empathizing with the person that's holding you hostage or putting you in this scenario, to the point where you actually start gaining deep passion for this person.
Guys, have you fallen in love with them? What was that one really big story with this? I think it was they made a documentary about it, and it was called Abducted in Plain Sight.
Oh, dude, I've never seen it.
It was literally, if I'm not mistaken, exactly what you're talking about. The girl falls in love with the guy that kidnapped her,
right,
and then he's asking her for recommendations on what he should do next, type thing, and it's what?
Yeah. You know, same thing with the Ted Bundy case. Girls were literally writing him love letters while he was on trial, even though he was guilty of all the horrific murder he was doing to all these other girls that that he was being accused of killing.
Dude, that's insane,
dude,
bro.
It's nuts, man. But yeah, girls.
We
can open up a whole other can of worms.
We can go deep on that one,
dude. That's nuts.
So interesting. So interesting.
Ayush, I do gotta say though, speaking on the topic of girls, and I don't want to get you in trouble, but I know you've traveled a lot. In your opinion, where have you seen the most beautiful girls?
Oh no!
In the countries you visited.
Cut it. No, I mean, it's crazy to say, and you guys are gonna hate this answer, but in America, people I think undermine what American girls bring to the table. I mean, you just have, especially the area we live,
right? It's
just it's so diverse. You find, if you're a single guy, you can find pretty much any type of race,
absolutely,
all over. But yeah, I think it goes on taste. You can find beautiful girls in Asia, South Asia. You can find, whatever you're into.
Right.
But European, New York, when I've been to Europe, everybody has good style in Europe, is what I'll say.
That's what it is.
Girls dress nice.
People actually take care of themselves really well. Whenever I go to Europe, they dress nice, they dress clean. They dress smart.
Dude, listen, I've spoken about that so many times in the past. When I went to the university in Czech Republic, you could tell the Czech kids versus the American ones, because the American ones would be showing up in their pajamas, hair over here, one down here, and the Czech kids would be going, not just Czech, they were from all different countries, but they'd be coming so well put together in a suit,
and it doesn't matter what time of the day it is.
Doesn't matter what, exactly, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is.
When I was in college, I used to have 8 a.m. 9 a.m. classes. To your point, I would see girls in those bullshit Ugg slippers with their freaking pajama pants, hair in a croissant. By the way, no hate to that, to all those ladies that are gonna get it. I'm not hating here, but
get the craziest.
I'm just makeup's all smeared and whatnot, and you're just all right, it's kind of the culture here. But you even made me a point before, Nikhil, in Russia, when a girl's going down the block, they're put together. It doesn't matter what they're doing, what errand it is. So I think there's a level of standard there too, and a level of custom practices there that some girls show. But
especially for men, just to close off the point, I think it's matters even more for men. It's a sad reality, but girls could look like garbage and they'll still have a couple guys that are still interested. But as a guy, you got to make sure, unless you're Channing Tatum, just you wake up and you're whatever. But you got to make sure you keep yourself in check in terms of your style, in terms of your hair, in terms of everything. You got to make sure that everything's fitted if you are looking for a good partner.
And I just want to make a comment on that. It's funny you'd say that. Think about this, right, guys? You look at a country like Russia.
Right. In
Russia, there are a significantly higher number of girls than guys.
Oh, yeah, it's 2 to 1.
So, yeah, maybe even slightly higher. But the crazy shit is you'll see chicks that look like they should be on the supermodel of Vogue.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy that they're with looks like Shrek. And that doesn't just exist in Russia. That's also Albania, Bulgaria, Macedonia, all those countries. The chicks are beautiful, but it's God damn, bro! It's insane, bro.
Well, you know what? It's funny you bring that up, from South, even Southeast Asia, right? You guys ever heard of what's the show called, 90 Day Fiance?
Of course.
Same thing. It's the guy. You guys remember that one guy with no neck? What was his name? That
I know who you're talking about.
Ed from 90 Day Fiance. Yeah. Dude, so this guy, like, but it shows.
Shout out Ed from
Definitely watch it.
But dude, it's crazy because like I'll like watch like live streams or like just like little docu-series online, and it's so true. Like these gorgeous Thai looking girls, hopefully the ones not without like like an eggplant in their pants, but but beautiful girls. And then there were just like this like out of shape like foreign dude. Who knows? He might have been a passport boy, but that's that's a whole other.
I saw that clip. That's right.
And you're just like, holy cow! But it just shows, like it maybe it's the lack of foreigners or the fact that everybody kind of looks very similar and people want like something completely different.
They want something different.
That looks different. Like
I think you just hit on it like right there. Like people just want something that's different.
Different, yeah.
So I was gonna say that's so funny because I actually saw a TikTok on this, and I know you guys did a clip with this with Orlando.
Shout out Orlando.
Shout out Orlando, guys.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, go back and watch episode 11. It was lit. We had a ton of laughs.
Yeah.
Shout out Orlando.
Yeah. So Orlando, like that question you asked him about passport boys.
Yeah.
Like people go. They have a term for that in Japan. I don't know if you got into it with your lady friend, and it's called LBH. They call it like.
Yep.
Losers back home.
Yep.
Oh my god.
So that's what Japanese like people call like the white boys that or like whoever comes there and like picks up girls, and it's so easy for them here, but they struggle with back in America or back in wherever they're from, and they call them like losers back home because
that's
they
hilarious.
pick up girls.
Ayush, let me ask you, like, why do you think that is?
I mean, I think it's straight what Tony said is like when you're in these like especially South Asian countries, they're seeing people that look like them almost 99%. Like we live in such a unique place being in America, especially in the Northeast, that we have so much diversity around us, but everywhere else you go, even Europe, most of the people look exactly like each other. They do. They have the same complexion, the same type of way of speaking, everything. So it's people like different.
People like different.
You go to Japan as like a white, a Caucasian person or a black person or a brown person. They don't see that every day, so they, people will be more attracted to that or curious.
Absolutely.
Curious.
Absolutely.
So yeah, losers back home.
Losers back home. Well, listen, I mean, hey, I guess if you're single and you want to get out there, I don't think it's, you should be shamed about it, but
I say be a stud in Japan, be a stud in America.
Back home. Yeah, right. And kind of close that thought off. I think you do make such a good point because if there's any place I could think of being the pure melting pot, it is New York City because you have the most diverse and authentic communities here that you can't imagine. Like obviously, if you go to certain boroughs in Queens, you have pure authentic Chinese food. Some parts of Brooklyn, you'll be in a true Uzbekistan community.
That's very true.
And that also reminds me of that one time, Nikia, when you flew to Uzbekistan and you told me like all these people are.
I was shocked. Like put this in your head, and this is a telltale sign that there's a massive Uzbek community in New York.
Yeah,
they have like direct flights to Uzbekistan. And that's
really?
They do. I've taken that flight.
Yeah.
And I remember, like Tony said, when I was coming back, like mad Uzbek people, like with Uzbek passports, were coming in. I don't know if they had green card or what, but I was genuinely surprised to see that. Now, listen, boys. Before we wrap up, I did want to kind of develop a new tradition on the podcast where I get to get a little bit more insight from the guest.
Yeah.
So you obviously got into the real estate realm like a couple of years back, and honestly, I've seen you make a crazy run so far. Like you said, you're already doing like several $1 million per year.
Right.
So like big, like good stuff, brother. And I wanted to ask you to that point, like what's one thing you would recommend or tell someone that's just getting into the real estate game? Like what's some real value that you could drop on the listeners?
Yeah, let me think about it. That's a good question. I mean, I kind of hit it, before about making sure you're the most knowledgeable about it, but and also making sure your expectations are set.
Right.
You're not going in there. So most people like start it because of the money. They see the commissions, everything. But if I were supposed to give like just one advice, it would be once you get your license, once you've passed the test, make sure you interview with a decent amount of brokerages. Don't just go to the first brokerage that's giving you a high commission, and because there's brokerages out there that the split is like 100% to 0, and it sounds amazing, especially as a new agent. You're like, wow, I keep 100% of the commission, but 100% of nothing is nothing. So you want to go, especially as a new agent, you want to go to a brokerage that's going to be able to teach you. Either someone's going to be there as your kind of mentor, and like in anything, like you want to have a place where you're going to be able to learn as much as possible, even if you're like, you know, doing the bitch work for a little bit, like the first year. Absolutely. Or like whatever it is.
Kind of earn your stripes
type thing.
Yeah,
like you're going to be making some money, but maybe not as much. But listen, learn. You don't know what you don't know, so get into the business. Go to some place that's going to provide you the resources, so that later on you have, you know, once you build up a business, you built up a brand, then you can negotiate your commission higher 100%. And, you know, maybe switch brokerages. But yeah, when you're starting out, definitely interview a few brokerages, talk to them, and it's as much as them interviewing you as you interviewing them. That's what people don't realize. They think that, oh, I have to sell myself to make sure, you know, whatever. But it's really you also talking to them and making sure they're a good fit for you as a brokerage.
Dude, very well said, bro. I think that's a very good piece of advice, dude. And like I said, I'm going to throw all your handles down in the description section. So if you guys want to connect with Ayush, feel free to check that out. Of course, follow him on Instagram, all his socials. And dude, like, I genuinely appreciate you coming out, giving us like your time, man.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, bro. Thank you, boys.
Hell yeah.